Elaine Kennedy. You watch council discourse on the chemical tanks. You've been one of the few people that have actually brought a lot of valid information to the discussion. And where do you think we're going?
Well, I hope that the federal government, is going to listen to the city. I'm a little discouraged because of the reduction in the amount of regulations that there are now for projects like that. The federal government has cut back on what is needed for projects. There's no longer a full environmental assessment needed, and so which would include a public meeting where citizens could have made their views known before this project really got underway, and that kind of environmental assessment is not needed anymore.
Do you think that that's fair? You know, we're listening to sort of one side of the story. It's sort of like when we contacted Transport Canada at CFN, and they outed that the city had known about the project in February of 2013, and then in the spring of 2013 they were given the plans by Trillium. We're getting some of the answers. We don't know if they're accurate. Even the presentation that you just mentioned, for all we know that there were some assessments that are needed. We know some people at Environment Canada off the record are upset. We're not getting full answers, and even tomorrow they're having this meeting in Ottawa that there will be no witnesses to other than the people that are going, who frankly some of them are part of the problem. Like I just interviewed Chuck Charlebois, who's worked hard, and nothing personal against Chuck, but he says, you know, the taxpayers of Cornwall most likely will have to cover the cost of these tanks. But if you and I and everyone else in the area were notified of these plans before construction started, we might have been able to mount an offense and have this stopped, you know, without a shovel going into the ground.
Right. And one of the things, though, that concerns me is the fact that the site, I don't agree with the tanks being there, but if for some reason or other they had to be there, why wasn't the site prepared enough so that it was ready for those kind of tanks? There's no lining put in that area. If there was ever a spill, it would go right into the river. With other places, when there's an environmental assessment, what has to happen is that they have to have a liner, they have to have a berm around the area that's high enough to hold the contents of the tank if it ruptures. If you look at the fact that the city has had to put, for the new snow dump, has had to line the area where this new snow dump is going to be, and that's just for snow and road salt and the other dirt that comes up when that's nowhere near as concentrated as what's going to be down there, and they've got to line the site.
But we live in a city. For instance, last week we received some documents. Big Ben, our gosh knows what dumps in the heart of our city, had no lining or berm as well, and there are reports that some of the leachate has gone through the bedrock, and where the sample tanks with sample wells were for Big Ben are now ice pads in the Benson Center. So, I mean, you know, the insanity isn't new. This is not a new procedure. This is the way things have been done here. And on top of that, we received other documents that state that the grounds that they used to dig up for the Legion ballpark were in fact put in Big Ben without Ministry of Environment permission or paperwork. And, you know, it's like, where does it end and where does it begin? I mean, we did a story a couple weeks ago where we pointed out the tanker that lost 640,000 liters of this road syrup in Oshawa. And if that happened here in Cornwall, and it was while it was offloading from the ship to the port, if that happened here in Cornwall with our narrow channel, the dilution would be very, very different.
Yes, but also whether or not the intake for the Glen Walter drinking system is just downstream from there, and that the dilution when it gets to there is not going to be enough to make that drinkable water, and so that water system would have to be closed down. No, it's ridiculous that those tanks are being put there.
No, Chuck feels we should look forward and find solutions, but again, do you feel any outrage that people at City Hall knew about this and the public wasn't disclosed until the tanks were already in the ground?
Well, that's not right. If that's the way it happened, then that's not right, because they're claiming that they didn't know, and if they did know, they should have told us.
Well, the city's release admitted that they knew. So I mean, it's
okay. I missed out on that somewhere along the line.
It's on CFN. I mean, with the city knew in February. There was another report in spring. It went to economic development, and there's only 3 people working in economic development, and they deliver a report to council every month. So again, why wasn't council, or maybe council was, and the thing is, it just feels like the people who are going to Ottawa to get the answers for us aren't even being upfront with us to start. So what's going to happen? Are we just going to end up with a big bill because we caught them with the tanks at the last second?
Well, we shouldn't be. It should be the federal government that takes care of any costs, that's for sure.
And Akwesasne, we did the 20-minute interview with Chief David. They found out about this project by reading it in the media.
Yeah.
So it's...
And that's not right when it's lands under their lands, you know. They have a claim on it. It's not right that they didn't know.
So in your opinion, as someone that's been a long-time activist, what do you think should happen with that property?
That property should be, what's been built so far should be removed. It should be put back into a condition in which it can be used by the citizens as access to the waterfront.
All right, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.